Somewhere in America tonight, a man is sitting by a cold window, looking out at the snow falling on an empty street, holding on to something that doesn't matter anymore, and he doesn't even know it yet. You and I both know that feeling. The feeling of clutching one half of something broken, hoping somehow it'll make itself whole again. But here's the thing. What if the kindest, wisest thing you could ever do is open your hand and let the other half go? Stay with me through this one, because by the end of this story, you're going to know exactly who in your life needs to hear it. And I promise you, the lesson buried inside this little moment on a train platform is something you'll carry with you for a very long time. His name was Henry. Henry was the kind of man you'd pass on the street and never notice. 58 years old, a small-town carpenter from a little place in southern Ohio. Hands rough as bark, eyes tired in a way only working men understand. That morning, he was running late for the train down to Cincinnati to see his grown daughter for the first time in almost 2 years. He'd packed his old leather suitcase the night before. He'd polished the only pair of leather gloves he owned, a Christmas gift from his late wife, Mary, the last gift she ever gave him before the cancer took her, and he'd set them carefully on the kitchen counter, next to a coffee mug that had gone cold an hour ago. Now, here's what most people miss about a man like Henry. On the outside, he looked fine, strong, steady, the kind of guy who shows up, fixes the porch, mows the lawn, and doesn't complain. But on the inside, Henry had been carrying something heavy for a long, long time. 2 years earlier, after Mary's funeral, he'd said something he shouldn't have to his only daughter, Sarah. Words he couldn't take back. Words about how she hadn't been around enough at the end. And Sarah, well, she hadn't called since. Not on his birthday. Not on Father's Day. Not on Christmas. And every single morning since, Henry had stood in that quiet kitchen, holding his coffee mug with both hands, feeling the silence in his house like a second winter that just wouldn't end. So when Sarah finally sent him a short text message, just 7 words, "Dad, can you come down this weekend?" Henry didn't sleep that night. He ironed his good shirt twice. He shined his boots. He slipped those leather gloves into his coat pocket because Mary had told him once, "Honey, a man should never travel without a good pair of gloves." And as he ran down that small-town platform with the train whistle screaming and his old knees burning, one of those gloves slipped quietly out of his pocket and landed on the wooden boards behind him. He never even felt it fall. And what happened next, he never could have predicted. Henry settled into his window seat, breathing hard, his old heart still pounding from the run. He pulled off his cap, ran his hand through his thinning gray hair, and reached into his coat pocket for the gloves, wanting to hold something of Mary's, wanting to feel her close for the long ride south. But his fingers closed around only one, just one cold leather glove. He searched the other pocket. He searched his bag. He looked under the seat. Nothing. And then, as the train began its slow lurch forward and the platform started to slide past the window, Henry pressed his face to the cold glass and saw it, his other glove, lying alone on the wooden planks of the platform, falling further and further behind him with every second. Now, here's the part most people miss. Most folks in that moment would have cursed, punched the seat, spent the next 3 hours angry at themselves for being careless, mourning the loss of a gift they could never replace. But Henry just sat there a moment, looking at that single glove in his hand. And then, very slowly, he stood up. He slid the window down. He felt the cold winter air rush into his face. And with a calmness that surprised even him, he took that remaining glove, the last glove, the one he was still holding, the one with Mary's love stitched into the leather, and he tossed it gently out the window, back onto the platform, A young woman across the aisle saw him do it and stared like he'd lost his mind. Henry just sat back down, folded his hands in his lap, and said quietly, almost to himself, "Whoever finds one, now they can find the other. A pear is no good to one man if the other man only has half." And in that moment, he thought of his father, a quiet Kentucky farmer who used to leave the last row of corn standing every fall for whoever might be hungry that winter. He thought of Mary, who used to bake an extra pie every Thanksgiving for the widow next door. He thought of a folded note Mary had left for him in her Bible, the one he hadn't been brave enough to open until 3 months after the funeral, the one that simply read, "Be kind, Henry, even when it costs you."
3 hours later, Henry stepped off that train in Cincinnati, and there she was, Sarah, standing on the platform in a long coat, her hands buried deep in her pockets, her eyes red and shining. She didn't say anything at first, neither did he. They just stood there. 2 people, 2 years of silence, one cold afternoon between them. And then, Sarah walked forward, slowly, and she wrapped her arm around her father like she was 8 years old again. And Henry, old, tired, calloused Henry, held his daughter and cried into her shoulder for the first time since he buried his wife. In her hand, Sarah was holding a small paper bag. After a long moment, she pulled back, wiped her eyes, and handed it to him. Inside was a brand new pair of leather gloves, dark brown, soft, lined with wool. "I saw them last week, Dad," she whispered. "I don't know why. I thought of you. I thought maybe it was time." Henry looked down at those gloves. Then he looked back up at his daughter, and he understood something he hadn't understood in 2 years. He hadn't lost Mary's gift. He had just been holding it too tight. And what he understood in that moment is something you're going to carry with you for the rest of your life. Here's the thing about life, friend. We spend so much of it clutching onto half of what we've lost, half a memory, half a regret, half a relationship, thinking that holding on tighter will somehow bring the other half back. But the truth is this: sometimes the bravest, kindest, most loving thing you can do is open your hand. Let it go. Trust that what was meant for you will find its way back, and what wasn't will become a gift for somebody else who needed it more. So tonight, before you go to bed, I want you to think of one person you've been silent with for too long, and I want you to send them just 7 words, just like Sarah did. "I've been thinking about you. Call me." That's it. That's the whole challenge. And listen, I want to hear from you. Down in the comments below, tell me this. What's the one thing you've been holding on to too tightly that maybe it's finally time to let go of? I read every single comment on this channel. Every one. Because somewhere on the other side of your screen, someone else is sitting in the dark right now, going through the exact same thing you are. And your words, your story, might be the one thing that helps them find the courage to open their hand too. That's what we do here. We hold each other up. And if this story moved you even a little, do me one favor. Subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell. New stories like this one come out every week, and I want to make sure the next one finds its way to you on the night you need it most. Until then, friend, be kind. Even when it costs you. Good night.